as far as setting aside the time to write, you just have to do it. I mean, we said it's time to go to the gym, the club, dates, food, go out to eat. If you want it bad enough, you'll make the time.
Word.
I'm kind of anal about that. I don't like excuses.
All right, family. Welcome to Bookmark Live at Black Writers Weekend. We are at this incredible venue powered by Black Writers Weekend and the Riverside Epicenter. We're thrilled to have Shaun Sinclair here as we celebrate and uplift the voices and stories of Black writers. I am Talib Jasser, founder of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival. So Shaun, how are you today, man?
Doing amazing, brother. Amazing.
All right, that's awesome. How does it feel to be speaking at Black Writers Weekend?
It feels phenomenal, man. A lot of you may not know, but I started with Black Writers Weekend way back in its inception. I used to write for the magazine initially.
Wow, okay.
So it just feels, it's like a full circle moment. It's great.
Nice. All right, man. That's what's up. What advice would you give to a writer just getting started on their journey?
Follow the passion. Don't follow the money. Follow the passion and do what feels right to the soul. Most importantly, consistency. You don't have to write everything at one day, but you have to write every day.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's important, man. It's a craft.
It is,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've written a wide range of novels, including Beats and Blow and Sex Mogul. What draws you to these themes that you explore in your writing?
Well, I like to tell stories that are true to the era in which we live, right? I have come from a diverse background, so I could write about anything, but I choose to write authentically about the streets and the music industry as we know it. And I like to touch those out of the bounds topics and put my pen on those things because I think I can articulate those stories in a way that's palatable to both types of audiences. So someone who may not have lived that lifestyle, I think that I can illustrate what goes on in a way that makes it palatable and understanding to them. And for those that did or does live that lifestyle currently, they can read my books and see themselves through those pages.
All right, yeah, that's important, man. Representation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man. So share the inspiration behind your transition from author to filmmaker with pen to pen multimedia.
Yeah, so it's crazy, but whenever I write my books, I always view them as movies. Anybody who's read my books, they say they're very descriptive. And the reason why is because I see them as movies in my head. So it's just a natural transition. I've written 18 books, literally published 18 books, I should say, of my own. And it's just a natural transition to where to go next because there are some people who would never read a book, but those same people watch a movie. So it's just a different way to get my stories out. That's all. I want everybody to touch them.
Yeah, man, that's important to be able to have different touch points.
Yes, yes.
Once folks discover you, now they want to binge you. They want to see
Correct.
what else you do.
Correct.
What else you up to.
Uh-huh.
So that's dope, man. How did you adapt your novel Sex Mogul into a successful television series? And were there any major changes in the storyline?
Oh, man. Absolutely changes in the storyline. So Sex Mogul, the book, you guys are familiar with flash fiction, right? So initially, Sex Mogul was an interactive flash fiction series.
Wow.
Whereas the writing part, where I wanted my readers to kind of come with me and give input on where the story would go. And so 5 volumes in, I got signed to the major. I got signed to Kensington. And so, there's a no non-compete clause. So I had to shelf it at that time, but the story was always there. And so adapting it from a novel to a screenplay, it was difficult because there's a learning curve. When you're writing a book, you can just write and just go wherever you want to go. Like if you want to take them to Dubai, you can take them to Dubai. But in script writing, you have to be cognizant of the budget. You have to be cognizant of locations and so on and so forth. So there was definitely a learning curve adapting the two. So I had to maintain the general theme. Like in film, we say scene value. In the book world, it's chapter, like what is this chapter thing? So it was a huge learning curve, but it was very inspiring and very, I love it. It's a new challenge, so I loved it.
Nice. And you talked about the fact that you're already kind of seeing it in
Absolutely.
that world and visual.
Absolutely.
While you're writing the book. So you already kind of had how you wanted to see it.
Yes, but so being a director, because I wrote and directed it.
Okay.
And so I'm not a classically trained director. Like I taught myself what I see in my book and what you guys see on the screen is two different things. So I literally had to train my mind to get all the noise out. You know what I mean? So though I saw it in my head initially as a movie, when you're adapting it to a movie, it's a different part of your mind that works.
Yeah.
So it was good though. It was challenging.
Okay.
It was good.
And what I find so fascinating about your story, Shaun, is that you started writing the magazine here, right?
Yeah.
For Black Writers Weekend.
Yes.
Did you even see that you would be doing the work that you're doing now, the script writing and the film and the many books? Did you see that?
The short answer is no.
Absolutely.
I didn't. I just say, man, I'm just following the course that God laid out for me. In the back of my mind, of course, I would be lying if I said I didn't see that. But all the nuances that go into becoming this to where I was, I never saw it coming.
Right, man.
It's just a blessing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we think about manifesting our vision, but we don't think about how our vision begins to manifest us once we get in it.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that. In Sex Mogul, you explore complex themes like power and desire. How do you approach writing such multifaceted characters?
I'm an observer of life. As a creative, we have to live through life and experiences. It's like we go out and we live and then we regurgitate those experiences through our words. I think that the common theme of Sex Mogul is that it's love, right? Regardless of what side of the tracks we come from, love is a common theme and a common thread that binds us all. So I like to show the complexities of, in this case, Navajo, who was in a certain type of lifestyle, and then Amon, who was in a certain type of lifestyle. And ideally, they'll be diametrically opposed to each other. But because love, we make love complex. Love is easy, right? So once they unify on that easy common theme, all the subtle complexities of our individualism, they go out the window.
Yeah,
they go out the window.
That's awesome, man, and it's awesome that you are able to tell these stories from that perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, and from your real life experiences.
Oh yeah,
as well.
for sure.
Word up. So can you describe your writing process for folks who are like, they want to get in the game, but that consistency piece that you talked about is a challenge, but also being able to carve out the time. People want to do things all the time.
Right.
But as long as they stay on the sidelines and never get in the game,
correct.
That's the world they're going to be in, right?
Yeah.
So can you describe your writing process, and do you follow any specific routines or methodology?
So for me, I write from 10 o'clock at night to 2 or 3 in the morning. Those are my magic hours. From day one, I started writing my first book in 2003. And that's just the way my mind works for me. So when it comes to books, my writing process is different from the scripts. So I'm going to briefly go into the differences. So with the books, I write them in my head first. As I'm going throughout my day, I'm seeing these characters, I'm seeing where they are. I just write them in my head until they get built up so much till I have to let it out. With the books, I like to freestyle. My background is music, right? So with the books, I like to freestyle. Typically, we would say you create some characters, you put them into a situation, and then you get them out of it. That's the narrative arc of storytelling. So for me, I just create the characters, and I know where I want them to go in the end. Everything else in the middle, I kind of freestyle. Okay. When I'm teaching my writing students, I call it flow. So when I'm writing my books, I like to get into the flow, and it just goes from there, man. I'm smiling thinking about it because it's magical to me. And I just go with my flow. I set aside my time. As far as setting aside the time to write, you just have to do it. I mean, we set aside time to go to the gym, the club, dates, food, go out to eat. If you want it bad enough, you'll make the time. I'm kind of anal about that. I don't like excuses. If you want it, get it done.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I heard you say that you teach.
I do.
That's awesome, man. That you're giving back and wanting this to be a lifestyle for many, right?
Absolutely.
Not just yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How has that been, and how did you start that?
Gratifying and rewarding. Mm-hmm. So just to keep it a rack, there aren't a lot of us that have books, right? And even when I structure my publishing company, I structure our price points so that people who may not typically be able to get their books out, they can publish through us and get their stories out. I remember being 8 years old, skipping class, go to the library to read books, and we didn't have books for us. And so I want to be that change that when my children go to the library, they see whole shelves of books written by us. It's not for me or anybody else to say whose story is not important. Our job is just to get the story out and to facilitate it.
Absolutely, man. I believe that if it's an experience that somebody's having,
Indeed.
it's important to represent it.
You got to find your audience.
Yes.
Even when I started writing with gangster erotica, right? I created a genre called gangster erotica, which is like erotic crime fiction. Again, I can write about anything. And initially, I was getting a lot of pushback because it's like I was alienating myself from a whole big audience of readers. But once I stayed consistent and I adapted my own readers, I should say cultivated my own readers, then I was able to feed that to them. So with the writing piece, I think that we all have stories in us. If you, especially if you're black in America, you got a story in you. My job is to help us get that out, right? That's my way of giving back, because same way I want my child and children to read, you have your story. She has her story. Everyone has their story. Let's get it out. Yeah. Let's not let any limitations of not knowing how be an impediment to getting your book out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I respect the fact that you evolved so much, man, and that you don't limit yourself, right? A lot of times we think about when they say that phrase, think outside the box.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what if you the box? You know?
It's true.
We thinking all this time about this external box
right.
that we got to think outside of, but if you the box, you got to first punch your way out of that.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
You know, I look at life, the arc of my life, you know, God was always putting me outside the box. And so I had no choice but to think outside the box, right? Coming up in the streets, going to the military, going to prison, coming home. Everything about that is outside the traditional box. So one of my mentors told me years ago, he was like, you know, you keep falling every time you try to fit inside the box. Step outside the box. Stay outside the box. Stand on top of the box.
Yeah.
And that's where you make your way. That's far as what's been.
Absolutely, man. And I want to go back to something else you said when it comes to your characters and how you work. I've listened to a lot of amazing writers who say their characters are talking to them in
yes,
their
they will.
head.
Yeah, they do.
All right, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the characters tell the story, man. Literally, I call it getting into your flow, because that's really what it is. Once you create those characters in your head, this is why I don't like to outline when it comes to writing my novels, because you never know. Like, that's the fun. To me, that's the fun part of writing, right? You take like my book Forbidden with Anthony, my main character Anthony. I didn't know what Anthony was gonna do. I just know what Anthony wanted to be at the end. So as a writer, and I tell writers this all the time, when you're writing your story, if you're not having fun, chances are your reader isn't gonna have fun. If you're writing an erotic scene, if you're not feeling it, then chances are your readers aren't gonna feel it. You have to put your readers there, and the way you do it is by taking yourself there as well. Yeah. Yeah, your characters tell your story, man. And what happens to me is when I'm writing one book, I have another book inside my head, right? And everyone has a block where they say, you know what, I can't quite finish this. What pushes me to finish one story is the characters coming behind them in the next story. It's like they just will not get out of my head, and I have to write it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And you churning them out.
Yeah.
So is this what you like? This is your life. This is your passion.
Yeah.
Is writing these books.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now it's film though.
Okay.
Yeah, it's film. So the film, you asked, to piggyback on another question you asked me earlier, my writing process for film is different.
Okay.
Outlining. I'm huge on outlining, because with the film, you have to stay within a certain budget. You have to stay within a realistic thing. And so you can't do the same thing with film as you do with books, because what'll happen is you'll be in Dubai somewhere and not know how to get your characters back in real life. Every time you see a car move in a film script, that's budget. That costs. Even in independent space, that costs. So I like to outline my films. That's the difference.
Okay. All right. And so what role do you believe creativity plays in addressing and overcoming societal challenges?
It plays a huge role. And honestly, that's why I keep writing. Because, you know, I write what you call edutainment. You know, KRS wouldn't coin that phrase, just for transparency, but I like to educate and entertain at the same time. So I call it putting the medicine inside the candy, right? If you can't lead people, if you can't feed people, you can't lead people. Literally and metaphorically. So you have to give them something they understand. You have to feed them before you can lead them somewhere else. So when you're writing in the creative process, a lot of times people can't see past their four walls of their home or the 4 blocks of their neighborhood. So creatively speaking, when you can address them where they are and then take them somewhere else, that might be the impetus to start the change that they need to see.
Yeah.
And as creatives, we have a responsibility, particularly as Black creatives, because our story is always different. And by Black, I mean culture, not color.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a huge responsibility. Like, think about the Harlem Renaissance, what it did for Black culture back then. And we can do the same thing today. Look at what hip-hop did. Creatively, hip-hop changed our culture.
Absolutely.
And it changed the dynamic of the world and how we're seen in the world, creatively speaking. So we need to keep that same tradition going.
Yeah, I love that, man. Can you share a memorable moment from your career that had a significant impact on you?
Yeah. So many, actually, but I'll share one in particular. So there was a student, I used to teach years ago when I was in prison, right? And there was a student of mine named Peter. And I used to be teaching my heart out. And Peter would sit in the classroom, and he wouldn't read. I said, why you can't? Damn, I can't believe I said his name. Anyway, I said, what's wrong with you, man? I'm teaching my heart out. Why you not reading this book? He said, man, I can't read. So maybe a couple weeks later, I'm teaching my heart out again. And Peter's reading the book. I'm like, dude, I stopped the class. I'm like, yo, you said you can't read. So he said, no, I can't read that because I can't relate to that. He said, I can read this because I can relate to that. And he held the book up, and that book was True to the Game by Terry Woods. And this was early in my writing career. But it taught me then that if I want us, particularly men, to read, we have to give them something they're interested in. Yeah. And that was a pivotal moment for my writing career.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, man. That's real. How do you approach collaboration with other creators, whether it be co-authors, actors, or production teams?
Great question. In the book world, I don't particularly like co-creating. I like to do my own thing. I've tried in the past, it doesn't work. In the book world, I think I have enough. I think my pen is strong enough for me to just write that. In the film space, film is a collaborative effort. You cannot get anything done without collaborating. As a director, I call myself an actor's director because even though I write the script, I like for the actors to make it their own. And then on the script side, I have collaborators. Some are silent, some are vocal, but I like the collaboration process in the film space because it helps me get to this next level. It's a different discipline for me, so it works. And even with film, like, man, it's crazy. You have to collaborate. Like, as a director, people probably think that the director is the person behind the camera. That's not true all the time. You have your DP, director of photography. You have your first AD who typically kind of runs the set so the director can do what they need to do. The second AD gets everyone, like, it's ran like the military, which is why I love it. It's squads and things of that nature. It's totally collaborative effort. That's total. Film space, you have to collaborate.
Got it.
Or you're going to fail. I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't do everything by ourselves. We may want to, but
and it's crazy for me because I'm a popular loner. Like, man, my perfect world, put me in a room by myself, a whole bunch of books, something to type, and I'm good. But in the film space, I have to come out my shell. Yeah. And it challenges you to be a better leader. Absolutely. So I'm cool with it.
All right. Now you cover some edgy, we'll call it edgy,
okay,
topics, right?
Okay.
Was there ever a time, because there's some writers that write for others in mind before and in that way they censor their own selves, right? They don't create the work that they want to create, worried about what their mama's gonna think when they read it or something like that. Was that ever something that you dealt with? And if so, how'd you overcome it? And if not, talk about that.
Absolutely. Like, so I created my own genre called gangster erotica, right? And never heard before. So initially, like, I could, humbly speak, I could write. Like, I could write about, when I mean by that, I mean I could write about anything. Literally, I could write about anything. I wrote for Don Diva magazine. I could write about anything. So, of course, you want to get your recognition, but when you're starting out with something new, it's like, man, and you go into the book signings, because early in your career, you make your mark by traveling and touching the people. So sometimes I'll go to these book signings and they'll walk past my table. They weren't getting it. And so initially, I would get a little discouraged because I'm like, you know what? Let me just write something normal and just like show them I can really write and then bring it back to this. But, when I pray and I meditate on it, my message from God is clear, right? He'll never give you the idea, or I should say, he would never give you the idea without giving you the means to get it out. So I had moments where I was discouraged, and I started to just do my own, like follow the trend, but I knew what I was striving to do. And I knew, again, consistency. At the end of the day, consistency will beat resistance every time. And so eventually it took root, and here I am. But that was a lesson with everything. I know exactly what I'm striving to do. I just have undying faith in myself, man. Whatever I'm doing, I don't believe that anything I do, anything I create, I believe it's going to get sold. I believe it's that people are going to gravitate toward it. It's just a matter of time.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, that's important to have that belief, right? Because this world can discourage.
Absolutely.
Right. This world don't love us a lot.
Nah.
So we got to be the first. You know, we're going to be always the one constant in our lives anyway.
Absolutely.
So we might as well be in pursuit of what we want.
Absolutely.
So I respect that so much, man. Go ahead, please.
And I'd rather lose as myself than win as being somebody else.
Yeah.
I'd rather look myself in the mirror every day and lose when I left it all on the table than look myself in the mirror with marbles and glass and everything, but I've got it being somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm not with that.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about ideas, man, and it's so important to identify that, right? It's over 8 billion people in this world, and it came to your brain.
Correct.
Which means it's yours.
Correct.
Right? It could have went to somebody else's, and that means it's theirs. So, and that means that you have everything. You are enough to create what it is.
Yeah, God will never give you the vision without giving you the provision.
There you go, man. Love it, man. So how do you see the landscape of black creativity evolving in the next few years?
Great question again. I think we're in a paradigm shift, and I think if we embrace our own and stop giving accolades and attention to others, I think it's a great space for it. Because at the end of the day, we've always controlled the cool. In every generation, in every era of time, we, melanated people, have always controlled the cool, right? We just never owned the cool. But now, with different platforms and now with entertainment being global, we have an opportunity to own it and claim it and promote it for what we want it to be. Right. And as long as we stay in pocket, I think the next 5 years belong to us.
Yeah. No, I'm right with you, man. I'm right with you. I got one to two more questions for you, brother.
Take your time.
What message do you hope audience take away from your work?
To be true to yourself. I intentionally put certain things, like some reviewers call my books sophisticated street fiction. I'll take it as long as you put street fiction in there, because I rep the streets. I come from the streets, and I evolved from the streets. So I want the message to be that if I can do it, you can too. Be true to yourself.
Got it.
That's it.
All right. Are there any upcoming projects or anything you want to promote right now?
Absolutely, man. Listen, the Sex Mogul series is out right now. It's streaming live on Tubi right now. Probably still be the most popular. If not, let's make it get back to the most popular. Check out Sex Mogul. Also check out The Setup. And we have a movie coming out this year called Sugar Baby. It's going to change the game. I promise you. We just shot it last month. Stay tuned to see where it goes.
All right. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. You blowing my mind over here. It ain't easy to blow my mind. I love it, man.
Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it. Tell people where they can find you.
You can follow me on IG at I am Shaun Sinclair, or you can go to our site at penandpenpublishing.com. That's PEN, the number 2, PEN again, PUBLISHING.com. For my actors, upcoming actors, we taking reels at all times. Just submit to info at penandpenpublishing.com, or just reach out to me on IG. I'm real active on IG, not so much Facebook. I have a Facebook page, but I don't really focus on that. IG, I am Shaun Sinclair. Also, follow me on YouTube at Shaun Sinclair on YouTube.
All right, man. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, meeting you.
Pleasure mine, brother.
Yeah, interviewing you, man. I've been exposed, and I'm about to go in.
I appreciate it.
So I appreciate it. You have any last words for the people before we wrap up?
Yes. Make sure you support your independent creators. Support all your creators, but especially your independent creators, right? Because we're doing this thing. A lot of times we're following the dream, and we're laying the blueprint for those dreamers that come behind us. Make sure you support your creatives. Don't snub your nose. Like, it takes a lot to create a film. And we understand when we put something out there, we're putting it out there for the criticism as well as the praise. But no matter what, support us. We welcome it so we can become better. But make sure you support us either way. The only way that we're going to be able to get to the next level and get our just due is with your support. So make sure you support your creatives.
Word up. Well, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure.
I'm going to close this out, all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you to our amazing sponsors and partners, Afros and Audio, Ike Ocean, Amazon KDP, All Americans Vote, Delphine Legacy Media, and Riverside Epicenter. Your support makes this event possible. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Black Writers Weekend and join the conversation using the hashtag BWWBookmarked on social. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's a pleasure, man.
Pleasure, brother. Thank you.
All right.